Most insane thing I've ever seen in a kitchen. A few years ago, I was a kitchen manager at a place in Charlotte, North Carolina. I don't know if it's common knowledge or not, but drug use in kitchens is very common, and, most of the time, accepted. That being said, I had a line cook who came in absolutely tweaked out on cocaine. He came to me, explained the situation, apologized, and asked, "Line cook, chef, can I run somewhere and come back a little later in better shape?" It was slow, and most of the prep was already done. So I said, "Me, sure, you can have an extra hour." He comes back 45 minutes later, totally calmed down, no more shaking, and he's got a grin on his face. He was one of my better line cooks, so I was honestly relieved. I didn't have to reprimand him, and I thought we could move forward. Dinner service begins. Everything's running smoothly. Then I look across the line and see him starting to fall asleep while working the grill. I check on him. "Me, you okay?" Line cook, "Yeah, chef, I'm fine." 15 minutes go by, and then he collapses. He lands face first and arm first right onto the grill. He doesn't even wake up. I run across the kitchen and push him off. His skin had literally melted to the grill. As he hits the floor, he finally wakes up and says, "Line cook, ah shit. Chef, may I go to the hospital?" The smell was horrific. At 7 p.m. on a Friday night, we shut the whole restaurant down, opened all the doors and windows, cleaned up the mess. And yes, we bought new plates for the grill. Don't worry. Around 10 p.m., I'm doing the order for the next day, and he comes back, bandaged up. He walks in and asks, "Line cook, chef, can I help with anything?" I was astonished. I couldn't even respond. Then he explains, "Line cook, I went to my dealer's house, got a shit ton of OxyContin, snorted it to calm down, and I just nodded out. But it's okay. They gave me morphine, so I can still work. And I'm a dumbass, so don't worry about workers' comp. I just want to keep my job." 2 weeks later, he came back to work, sober, and he hasn't touched a drug or had a drink since. I arranged for his hospital bills to be paid. He didn't have paid time off, but he earned his way back. He's one of the best employees and craziest motherfuckers I will ever meet. Edit. After seeing how much you all liked this story, I contacted him. It's been about 3 years. He met his now fiancée at a Narcotics Anonymous meeting. They're expecting a daughter in a few months. He was just offered a position as sous chef at a new restaurant opening in Atlanta. He told me he moved there because Charlotte was too dangerous for him. Too many haunting memories. Thank you all so much. It made me proud. He cried, thanking me on the phone when I told him about sharing this. And honestly, I might not have reached out if it weren't for this. Thank you, from both of us.
Employee let people steal and got paid in meth. I work as a supervisor in a drug store. One night, one of my employees was seen just letting someone walk out with hundreds of dollars worth of merchandise. A few minutes later, he went outside to collect the shopping carts. At the time, I was reviewing the security footage and on the phone with my store manager. The employee was outside for a pretty decent amount of time. I hadn't noticed right away because I was focused on collecting the video evidence. But then my other cashier called me up and said, "Cashier, hey, he still hasn't come back in. It's been like 15 minutes. So I walked downstairs. Right as I'm doing that, he comes back in, with one shopping cart. And the guy was high as a kite. Since I'm not the store manager, my hands were kind of tied in terms of what I could do. So I just sent him home and kept someone else to cover for the rest of the night." Later that night, the employee called me. For context, I happen to be best friends with his sister. He starts going off, talking about how he hates snitches and how people should just leave other people alone. Employee, people always got something to say, they need to mind their business. He rambled on and on. The next day, the loss prevention manager came in, along with my store manager. The employee was terminated. It turned out he had been letting his friends walk out with baskets of merchandise, completely unscanned. Then, he'd go outside to collect carts, and his friends would give him meth in exchange for the stolen goods. He really thought he had this master plan. He believed he was sticking it to the man. But it was honestly just really sad to see. Since then, he's been incarcerated. He also successfully completed rehab. I'm glad to say, he's doing so much better now. He's apologized profusely about the whole thing.
We called it Final Destination, Car Wash Edition. I used to work at a car wash, and I swear, some of the stuff that happened there was straight out of Final Destination. So one day, my friend was pressure washing inside the tunnel. You know, the long section with all the spinning brushes and machines. The tunnel was about 125 feet long, and he was working his way through when the buzzer suddenly goes off. That buzzer means a car has just been sent through. The cars are in neutral and ride along on a conveyor belt. Rollers pop up and push them at a steady pace. My friend hears the buzzer and starts heading back toward the entrance, keeping clear of the spinning wrap cloths. Now, the pressure washer he was using had one of those steel-reinforced hoses, super tough, like you could tow a boat with it. Well, somehow the hose started getting caught in one of the wraps. He tried to yank it loose, but it got tangled up even more. At some point, it wrapped around his leg, and, yeah, he got stuck. He ended up spinning with the wrap until it paused. It stops briefly between cars when the sensor resets. But once the system started again, he managed to grab onto something to stop himself from spinning, which made things worse, because now his leg was twisting while the wrap kept spinning. Meanwhile, the car was slowly getting closer. Then the roller went over his hand. Finally, someone noticed something was wrong and hit the emergency stop. The equipment is super loud, so no one heard anything at first. The hose was so tight and strong they had to call the fire department. They used the jaws of life to cut him free. He had pressure scars from the hose and ended up with a broken ankle. Had to get 2 plates and 6 screws put in his foot. He's got the scars to prove it, but thankfully, he recovered. And yeah, we definitely learned to triple check hose clearance after that. Edit, got more stories. Here's a couple quick ones. One day, an older lady came in for a wash, got her car cleaned, and left. A few minutes later, we hear a loud scraping sound, like metal on pavement. We look over and see that she had driven over a raised median at the shopping center entrance. I was thinking, what the heck is she doing? Then she sort of merged into traffic, so I looked away. 3 or 4 seconds later, boom, a massive crash. We ran over, and it turns out she hadn't merged into traffic. She had actually turned into the grass area between the road and the car wash, lost control, and drove straight into the side of the building. Turns out, she had a diabetic seizure and passed out while driving. We unlocked the door, and she had no idea what had just happened. Thankfully, she was okay in the end. Another one. I was wiping down a car and saw an older couple pull into the lot. They parked near the curb. The gentleman got out and walked around to the passenger side. He had breathing tubes, so we knew he might have had health issues. Next time I looked over, I saw him fall backward and hit his head on the curb. I ran over right away. He had a pretty serious cut on his head, but he was conscious. I stayed with him, called 911, and made sure he was stable until the ambulance got there. Just another day at the car wash. First day at work and everyone ghosted me. It was an apprenticeship. On the day I started, the boss, who was also my referent for the apprenticeship, was absent. So was the secretary. And so were the 2 other people working in the office with me. So, I had to come in through the production area. I was asking colleagues I hadn't even met yet to open the office for me. Then, I just sat at my desk. For the whole day. No one gave me computer access. No directions. No tasks. Nothing. And when lunch break came around, I didn't know the area. I didn't even know if there was a break room. So I just stayed in the office. Alone. And hungry. On the second day, the boss was there. He lightly scolded the 2 colleagues from the production area for leaving me completely alone, even during lunch. Boss, you can't just leave someone by themselves like that on their first day. Everyone made it up to me by being super nice afterward. But still, it felt really weird, eerie, and honestly, a bit sad to be completely forgotten on your first day. My boss was crazy. This guy was crazier. When I was 14, I worked at a floral business that basically hired anyone. My duty for that day was to stand in one of the greenhouses and shove seeds into little soil pots all day. I was partnered up with this guy, probably in his early 20s. He was your typical burnout, with that 24/7 confused look, who would spend all day telling everyone about how much of a badass he is. My boss was fucking insane. He had an incredibly short temper. His typical reaction to someone doing something wrong would be to throw his hat, then break things, including but not limited to plants, chairs, a tow motor once, and so on. Anyway, apparently, the kid I was working with fucked something up, and the boss had just noticed it. He comes storming into the greenhouse, red in the face. He starts yelling at the kid for something he had done previously, then begins kicking things over. Eventually, he yells, "Boss, get the fuck out and don't come back. You're fired." Instead of this kid walking out with his head down, he runs up to the boss, rips his shirt off, and yells, "Kid, if I can do 100 push-ups in 1 minute, I keep my job." He wasn't asking. He was telling. He drops down and begins doing the fastest push-ups I've ever witnessed. He mumbled his way to 100, put his shirt back on, walked back to the bench, and continued planting seeds like nothing ever happened. The boss never said another word.
She whispered, "It's going okay," but it wasn't. I, a 32-year-old female, got my first job when I was 19 years old as a personal care assistant for a healthcare company. I helped take care of an elderly woman, we'll call her Hannah, who lived in my neighborhood. My job was to clean her house, make her meals, and help her with anything else she needed. It was pretty easy, as she didn't need help with bathing, dressing, or anything too physical. Hannah was honestly the sweetest woman, and most days, working for her didn't feel like work. I looked forward to going to her house, just to spend time with her. Whenever it was time to eat, we'd sit in the living room and watch her favorite shows, Judge Judy and The People's Court, and just chat. If I finished cleaning and she didn't need anything else, we'd head into the kitchen to bake. She taught me so many tips and tricks about cooking and baking, and I always felt like I was learning from someone who genuinely cared. Fast forward a few years, I ended up moving about an hour away with my daughter's dad. We're not together anymore, but I had my daughter in my 20s. Even after moving, I would call Hannah once a week to check in on her and see how things were going with her new personal care assistant. She always sounded cheerful and said things were going well. But then one day, I called and asked how it was going, and her response was, "Well, it's going okay." That immediately caught my attention. I asked, "Are you sure?" And she replied, "Yeah. I think so." Her tone didn't sound like her usual self, and it didn't sit right with me. So I suggested visiting her over the weekend, and she lit up. "Oh yes, that would be wonderful. And maybe you can meet my new personal care assistant when you come." Looking back, I realize now that she may have been trying to tell me something was wrong, without actually saying it. That weekend, I got to her house in the morning. She greeted me at the door with a hug and said how happy she was to see me. We sat in the living room catching up on life, watching her favorite shows, just like old times. After a while, a woman walked in. We'll call her Karen. Hannah smiled and said, "Oh, this is my new personal care assistant, Karen." Karen stared at me for a second and said, "Oh, okay." Then she went into the bathroom for maybe 20 seconds and walked right back out the front door. A few moments later, she returned, carrying a crock-pot, which she put in the fridge. As she walked back through the living room, she said, "Hannah, there's a crock-pot in the fridge, so when you get hungry just take it out and get you some lunch." For context, Hannah used a walker. She looked confused for a second and said, "Oh, I don't think I can carry that. It would be too heavy." Without hesitation, Karen snapped at her, yelling, "Hannah, that crockpot weighs 10 ing pounds, you can pick it up, it's not that heavy." I was absolutely floored, too stunned to speak. I looked over at Hannah, who had her head down like a child who'd just been scolded. Karen said, "I'll be back to check on you later," and slammed the door on her way out. After a long pause, I asked Hannah if she was okay. She quietly said, "Yeah, I'm alright." I decided to just sit with her, chat, and try to take her mind off what had just happened. Eventually, lunchtime rolled around, and she said she was getting hungry. I told her to sit tight and I'd get her lunch. I took the crockpot out, and honestly, whatever was in it didn't look or smell right. Then I opened her silverware drawer and got even more upset. Almost all of her utensils were dirty, like, caked on food dirty. I took them out, washed them, and loaded the dishwasher. I can't remember what I ended up making her, but she said she wanted something other than what was in the crockpot, so that's what I gave her.